They said it was just a holiday visit. A warm family Christmas, but I should have known better. My name is Kieran. I'm 34 and I live in Austin. I work in enterprise software sales, long hours, tight deadlines, endless Zoom calls. You know, the kind of job where your boss thinks 6 a.m. is a great time for a pipeline review. Anyway, this story isn't about my job. It's about my family. Or more specifically, how they played me for years until I finally flipped the script. Growing up in Salem, Oregon, I was the reliable one, the fixer. My dad, Greg, is 61 and permanently stuck in 1987. He thinks authority is yelling louder than everyone else in the room. My mom, Denise, 57, plays peacemaker, always smoothing things over, never choosing sides. Then there's my sister, Kayla. She's 32, divorced, and still acts like the world owes her a soft place to land. Somehow, she was always the golden one. Forgot chores? No problem. Failed a class? She's just creative. Meanwhile, I was mowing lawns in the rain and tutoring to afford secondhand AP books. When the housing crash hit in 2009, my parents got hit hard. I was 19 and fresh into my first sales internship. They were losing their house, so I helped. A little at first, groceries, gas money. Then it became the electric bill. Then Kayla's car payments, then everything. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal, just temporary. Just until we get back on our feet, they said. But 8 years later, I was their crutch. Their entire support beam, honestly. I was waking up for East Coast client calls and logging off after West Coast check-ins. No breaks, just hustle. And for what? To send nearly $4,000 a month back home while living in a studio apartment with paper-thin walls and ramen for dinner, my breakdown came in layers. Watching Kayla get her nails done while texting me that the kids needed new shoes. Seeing DoorDash charges on their shared account while I skipped groceries to pay their cell phone bill. Hearing Dad say nobody wants to hire a man my age while refusing to even apply for remote jobs. The moment that broke me, though, was Thanksgiving last year. Kayla's daughter Lexi had a 103-degree fever. Kayla still went out that night calling it a mental health break. I watched my mom clean up puke while Kayla posted a boomerang of her margarita flight on Instagram. I called her out. My dad defended her. "She's a single mom, Kieran," he barked. "So, that's not a hall pass for being a trash parent," I snapped back. That didn't go over well. After that, I kept quiet. Just kept sending money, working, numbing myself with Netflix at night and caffeine in the morning. Then in December, I got a 6 a.m. call from Dad. "Hey, bud, any chance you could come home for Christmas? We're all gonna be together. Your mom misses you." I hesitated. Hard. But then he added, "The kids keep asking about Uncle Kieran." Damn it. Lexi and her little brother Max, they're good kids. Too good for the chaos they live in. So against every red flag waving in my brain, I said yes. I dropped nearly $900 on a last-minute ticket to Oregon, took time off during our end-of-quarter sales crunch, and even bought gifts. I figured maybe, just maybe, this would be different. When I landed at PDX, the cold rain hit me like judgment. I waited 25 minutes for an Uber, then rode silently to the same house I'd been funding for years. The yard was trashed. Toys in the bushes, bikes left to rust, a half-inflated bounce house sagging in the mud like a forgotten promise. I stepped over a broken scooter to knock on the door. Dad opened it. No smile, no welcome home, son. Just a gruff, "You're watching Kayla's kids. We're heading to Bend." I blinked. What? Kayla breezed in behind him, grinning like this was a prank. "Surprise spa week for us, play week for you." Lexi and Max ran past my legs, tracking mud on my jeans. My mom shouted from the kitchen. There's plenty of frozen meals and their schedules on the fridge. I realized this wasn't spontaneous. This was the plan all along. I wasn't invited for Christmas. I was booked as free childcare. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said one word, "Wow." Then Kayla had the audacity to say, "They've been so excited to see you. You'll have fun." They piled into the SUV, paid for with my cosign, of course, while I stood in the hallway still holding my suitcase. My niece tugged on my sleeve and asked if I knew how to microwave mac and cheese. "I do," I said softly, "but I won't be here." That's when everything changed. I stood in the hallway, still soaked from the rain, watching the SUV disappear down the driveway. The same SUV I helped them get because their last one couldn't handle the snow. Funny how they never offered to help me with anything not the deposit on my apartment, not when I maxed out a credit card after they asked for help with a plumbing repair that turned out to be a new TV. No, they only called when they needed something, and I was done. I dropped my suitcase on the floor, leaned against the wall, and let the silence settle in. The kids were in the living room already arguing over a tablet, and the house smelled like sour milk and takeout. I walked into the kitchen and stared at the whiteboard covered in scribbles. School time, snacks, TV limits. It looked like someone tried to manage chaos with a dry erase marker. I took a photo of it. Not because I needed it, but because this whole thing needed receipts. Then I walked to the fridge. Half-empty yogurt containers, a jar of olives, expired milk. I opened the freezer and found 6 boxes of frozen waffles and a single plastic-wrapped steak. I stood there thinking, this is how they prepare for a week away. My niece came in behind me holding a blanket and a stuffed bear missing an eye. She asked if I'd read her a bedtime story. It was 2 p.m. The kid had no sense of routine. That's when I knew I wasn't staying. But I couldn't just walk out either. I had to make sure they felt it. Not with drama, with consequences. I told the kids to hang out in the living room and grabbed my laptop. I locked myself in the guest room, the one I used to sleep in before it became Kayla's personal dumping ground, and logged into every account I still managed. Mortgage, credit cards, streaming services. I started pulling numbers, dates, totals. Then I downloaded the last 12 months of bank statements and exported them to Excel. Line by line, I highlighted every expense that had my name on it. It took 2 hours. When I was done, the number at the bottom was just under $37,000 in 1 year. That was nearly half my income. No wonder I couldn't afford a vacation or even a decent sofa. I'd been paying for someone else's comfort while sitting on the floor eating canned soup. By the time the kids fell asleep, one on the couch, the other curled up in a pile of clean laundry, I'd made my decision. I wasn't babysitting. I wasn't covering another dollar. And I wasn't going to yell about it. I was going to move strategically. I called my friend Sierra, who works in family law. Told her the situation, asked her if there was any legal issue with refusing to take care of the kids. She laughed. "You're not their guardian. You didn't sign anything. If they left them with you assuming you'd agree, that's on them." I hung up with her and started looking into cancellation policies. Turns out Kayla had booked the resort using the same credit card she borrowed for emergencies, the one I paid off every month because it was in my name. I pulled up the account. Sure enough, there was the reservation. Fully refundable if canceled before midnight. It was 8:46 p.m. I canceled the reservation. The money was refunded to the card within minutes. I watched the balance drop and felt something I hadn't in years control. Not anger, not revenge, just control. Then I went ahead and transferred the credit to a new travel account I opened in my own name. If they asked, I'd say I was protecting my finances, which would be true. The next morning, I packed my things, wrote a note, "Lexi and Max are safe. I'm not staying. You'll need to make other arrangements." I left the note on the kitchen table with a frozen pizza next to it and walked out. I checked into a downtown hotel. Expensive, sure. But the irony was I was finally spending money on me. Not out of guilt. Not out of obligation. Just because I could. I texted my mom to let her know the kids were okay. She called instantly, panic in her voice. I didn't answer. An hour later, Kayla's number lit up my phone. Then Dad. Then group text. The guilt barrage started fast. "You left our kids alone. How could you do this? You ruined our vacation." I didn't respond. They made it back that night, apparently. I found out from a voicemail Kayla left at 1 a.m. full of crying and accusations. "You betrayed us," she sobbed. "You used to be the one person I could count on." That hit hard, but not the way she intended. Because that was exactly the problem. I was the one they all counted on, and I never signed up for that. The next morning, I booked a meeting with my accountant. We went over all the family-related expenses from the past 5 years. I told him I wanted to stop all recurring transfers. Every auto pay to my parents' mortgage, their phone plan, even the Disney Plus bundle. Gone. I also asked him to help me prepare a document, a personal financial statement showing how supporting my family had drained my savings and prevented me from buying a home. I had a plan, and it involved one last visit to that house, one last face-to-face conversation, and I was going to make sure they heard me. Every word. I didn't tell them I was coming. I just drove straight to the house 2 days later, documents in hand and parked in the same driveway I'd been paying for. The yard was even worse than before. Overturned trash can, a trail of cereal from the front porch to the lawn, like someone spilled it and gave up. I walked past it all and knocked. This time, I didn't care if they opened the door or not. They owed me 5 minutes. They owed me 5 years. My dad answered. Same expression he always wore when something was inconvenient. His eyes flicked down to the folder in my hand like it was a threat. He stepped aside without saying a word. My mom was in the kitchen pretending to clean a counter that hadn't been wiped down in weeks. Kayla was on the couch, one leg tucked under her, scrolling her phone like nothing had happened. Lexi and Max weren't around. I assumed they were with a neighbor or asleep upstairs. I didn't ask. I sat down at the dining table, the one I remembered doing homework on, while Kayla got out of chores by faking a stomachache. I placed the folder on the wood, opened it, and slid the top page across. This is what I've spent on all of you in the last 5 years, I said calmly. No sarcasm, no raised voice, just facts. Mortgage, utilities, phone bills, groceries, streaming services, car payments, childcare, clothes, medical bills. Everything. Kayla shifted, suddenly alert. My dad stayed standing, arms crossed, like he was bracing for a fight. My mom finally turned to face me, worry in her eyes. I continued, I don't expect repayment. That's not what this is about. But I want you to understand exactly what I've given up while you've lived like my effort didn't exist. I flipped to the second page. Here's what I could have done with that money instead. Bought a house, invested in a business, saved for retirement, taken a vacation that didn't include folding someone else's laundry. No one spoke. I let the silence stretch. You called me family when you needed something, but you never treated me like one. My dad scoffed, said, You act like we forced you. You didn't have to, I replied. You just made guilt my job title. You dangled love like a paycheck I had to earn every month. My mom opened her mouth but closed it again. She looked smaller than I remembered, like all the pretending had worn her out. Kayla finally spoke. You could have said no. I did. You just ignored it. I looked her straight in the eyes. Every time I asked you to step up to look for a job, to stop dumping your life on me, you ghosted, deflected, or cried until I caved. She blinked but didn't deny it. You made me think I was cruel for even asking for balance. I stood up. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to close this out. I pulled out 3 letters, one for each of them. These outline exactly what accounts I've removed myself from. The mortgage, the phone plans, the utilities. As of this week, you're on your own. No more safety net. No more surprise transfers. My dad exploded first. You're abandoning your family. No, I said. I'm removing myself from a cycle that never should have existed. I'm done being the emergency contact for your poor decisions. Kayla threw her phone on the couch, eyes blazing. What about my kids? They're your kids. Start acting like it. You can't just walk away, my mom whispered. Yes, I can. And I will. I grabbed the folder and tucked it under my arm. You asked me to come home for Christmas. What you meant was come do your unpaid job and smile while we take a spa vacation on your dime. They were silent again. Not from shock, just the realization they couldn't twist this into anything but what it was. By the way, I added, pausing at the door, that resort, the one you were headed to. It was booked on my credit. I canceled it. Money's back in my account. You can thank me later for avoiding a fraud charge. I walked out without waiting for a reaction. I didn't need closure. I already had it. 2 days later, I got a voicemail from my dad, voice thick with rage. "You think you've won? You think this ends here. You're going to regret this." I saved it. Then I blocked the number. That weekend, my bank alerted me to a flagged wire transfer request, 12 grand to an account in the Cayman Islands. I never authorized it. I called immediately. They froze the attempt. Then I checked my credit report. 6 hard inquiries from shady loan services. Someone was trying to destroy me financially. I knew who. I called a lawyer. She didn't even blink when I told her the story. "Happens more than you think," she said. "Send me everything. We'll build a case." 48 hours later, we had it traced back to one IP, my dad's. He'd used his own email as the backup for a fake account in my name. My lawyer filed a criminal report. I didn't want revenge. I wanted distance, protection. But if they pushed, I'd push back with paperwork. My mom texted me nonstop, begging, apologizing, promising it was a mistake, that they were desperate, that they needed help. Kayla sent one message, "Do what you have to." That told me everything I needed to know. She finally saw it. Saw him, the way I always had. I changed every password, froze my credit, rerouted all my finances to new accounts. I wasn't leaving the door cracked open anymore. I was sealing it shut. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was trying to survive. And for the first time in years, I could actually breathe. I didn't think they'd take it well, but I also didn't expect things to spiral as fast as they did. After the failed fraud attempt and the blocked loans, the real fallout started. My lawyer filed the official charges: identity theft, attempted fraud, defamation. A detective called to confirm what we already knew. My father had used his own laptop, his personal email, as the recovery contact, and left a trail so obvious it was almost embarrassing. He hadn't even tried to hide it. The arrogance was staggering. A week later, I got the call a warrant had been issued. They were going to seize the devices and question him. The law wasn't interested in excuses. It was black and white. You mess with someone's identity, their livelihood, their safety, you pay the price. I didn't gloat. I didn't even feel satisfaction. I felt tired. But there was also a strange peace in knowing this time it wasn't going to be swept under the rug. This time he wouldn't shout his way out of it. The morning the police showed up, I got a message from Kayla. Just one sentence. "He's losing it." I didn't reply. Didn't need to. I'd seen this before. Whenever life didn't bend to his will, he'd explode. Blame everyone but himself. Cry victim. Flip the script. But this time the script was documented, time-stamped, and submitted. No yelling would undo it. I stayed in my apartment that day, lights off, coffee in hand, watching the city breathe through my 12th floor window. My phone stayed silent. No updates, no drama, and for the first time in my adult life, I didn't check in. I let the chips fall. That night, I slept. Not the kind of half sleep I'd gotten used to, but real sleep, the deep, weightless kind you forget is possible when your life is always bracing for impact. The next morning, Kayla texted again. They took everything. Laptops, phones. He's furious. Mom's crying nonstop. I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. I didn't want to carry their chaos anymore. I had a new job to focus on, a new apartment that finally felt like mine, and a life that didn't revolve around damage control. But karma wasn't done with them. Because the government letter I'd filed months ago, the one outlining how I'd been supporting multiple adults and minor children financially, while also reporting concerning neglect during my video calls, that had triggered a formal review. While they were still reeling from the police visit, another letter arrived, this one from Child Services. And it wasn't a polite warning. Kayla called me from an unknown number. I let it ring out. Then the voicemail came. Her voice was shaking, lower than usual, raw. "They're coming to inspect the house tomorrow. I don't know what to do." I could hear the kids in the background. One crying, the other asking for juice. I didn't call back. I didn't rush in with a solution. because this was what accountability looked like, not punishment, just reality finally catching up. The next day, I walked to my favorite corner cafe, ordered my usual black coffee. The barista knew my name now, asked how work was going. I told her busy, but good, and meant it. I was slowly rebuilding a life where my name didn't mean obligation. I spent the afternoon building out a financial tracker for myself, goals, savings, actual long-term planning. For once, the numbers were mine alone. No hidden transfers, no guilt-coded deposits. That evening, as the sun dropped behind the skyline, I got an unexpected knock on my door. I checked the peephole. Kayla, alone. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. She looked different, less polished, more human. "Can I talk?" she asked. I nodded and stepped aside. She walked in slowly, taking it all in: the clean walls, the calm space, the life not buried in chaos. She sat down on the edge of the couch like she didn't want to leave a mark. "I wanted to see it," she said softly. "What life looks like when no one's draining you." I didn't say anything, just waited. She kept going. CPS came, saw everything. The broken smoke detectors, the cracked window, the mess. They gave us 72 hours to fix it or they'd open a formal case. I stayed silent. I'm staying in a motel right now, with the kids. Mom's still at the house, but it's falling apart. Dad won't talk, just keeps pacing like he's waiting for someone to come save him. I looked at her, really looked. For the first time, I saw the exhaustion that didn't come from manipulation. It came from consequence. I applied for a job, she said, a little stronger now. Receptionist at a dentist's office. Nothing special. But it's something. I nodded. That's a start. She looked at me, eyes wet. I never thanked you. Not just for the money, for calling them, for making someone look. I hated you at first. Thought you were abandoning us. But now, I get it. You weren't abandoning us. You were choosing yourself. And that's something I've never done. There it was. Not an apology, not a fix, but something better. A real moment. I told her I hoped she stuck with it, that the kids deserved better, that maybe she did too. She nodded, wiped her eyes, and stood. I won't ask for anything else. I just needed to say it out loud. I opened the door. She walked out without looking back. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I sat on my couch, finished my tea, and felt something simple: clarity. They weren't my burden anymore. They were adults capable of change or collapse. It wasn't my job to catch them, only to step aside and let gravity do its work. It had been almost 3 weeks since Kayla showed up at my door. She hadn't messaged me since, and I hadn't reached out either. There was no resentment, just space. And space was good. It let things breathe. My life had taken on a different rhythm: early mornings with no surprise calls, quiet dinners without background chaos, weekends that didn't start with guilt. I'd even started jogging again, something I hadn't done since my 20s. My muscles hated me, but my mind didn't. That was new. The apartment felt lived in now. The fridge was stocked, the walls had a few framed prints, and I'd finally ordered a real couch. Not something I found secondhand or borrowed. Mine. All of it. Work was steady. Not amazing, but solid. My boss pulled me aside during a team call and said my numbers looked strong, especially considering the chaos I'd just walked through. I smiled and told him I was finally learning how to prioritize. What I didn't say was how long it took to learn the difference between helping and being used. That was a hard one to unlearn. One afternoon, I got a letter. No return address. My mom's handwriting. Inside was a check for $750 and a note. We're doing all we can. Thank you for everything you did for us. I hope one day we can talk again. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I needed the money. I didn't. But because it was the first tangible sign of effort from their side. Real effort. Not emotional manipulation, not late-night pleas, not guilt-soaked voicemails. Just action. I didn't cash the check, I didn't tear it up either. I tucked it in a drawer. Some things aren't about the amount, they're about the gesture. The next week, I ran into Marissa, the CPS worker, at a coffee shop near my office. She spotted me before I saw her, came over with a warm smile and a nod. "You look better," she said. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was true. "I am," I said. "Much better." She sipped her drink and added, "Your sister's making progress. House is in better shape. Kids are calmer. She talks about you sometimes. I think she misses you." I didn't know how to respond. I hadn't let myself think about Lexi and Max much. It hurt too much. I asked, "Are they okay?" She nodded. "They're safe, more stable. Your report helped. Sometimes we don't get a chance to intervene until it's too late, but not this time." It stayed with me the rest of the day, that word stable. It was what I'd wanted for them all along. Not luxury, not perfection, just something that didn't require constant crisis management. That night, I found myself looking at old photos. Not many. Most of my digital gallery was work trips or blurry meals I barely remembered eating. But there were a few. Lexi in a Halloween costume I mailed from Austin. Max asleep on my chest during a visit when he was still small enough to carry without breaking your back. I'd loved those kids like they were mine. Maybe I still did, but love wasn't enough. Love without boundaries just turned into sacrifice. A few days later, Kayla messaged me. Not to ask for anything, just a photo. The kids in their new apartment, cheap furniture, but real smiles. Crayons scattered across the floor, a coloring book, some toy cars. It wasn't Instagram perfect. It was real. "Thank you," she wrote. "I know it took everything falling apart for this to happen, but I'm trying, and they're happier." I didn't reply right away. I stared at the photo for a while. Saw something in it I hadn't seen in years. Peace. Not in their eyes, in mine. The version of me who used to jump at every call, who gave away stability in exchange for family approval, he would have walked right back in. He would have said, "I'll come help you set up." But I wasn't him anymore. I finally typed, "I'm glad they're okay. Keep going. They deserve your best." "So do you." That was it. No promises, no renewed access, just a nudge. Because if there was going to be a new version of us, it had to be built on something other than rescue. The silence from my dad stayed loud, but not surprising. He was the kind of man who mistook apologies for surrender, who believed power came from control, not growth. I didn't expect a call. I didn't want one, because people like him didn't change when they were confronted. They changed when they had no other option, and even then, only on the surface. I'd stopped wishing he'd wake up and realize how much he'd burned. Some fires aren't meant to be put out. They're meant to be walked away from. The legal case was moving forward slowly. My lawyer said the evidence was airtight. Charges were formal now, and unless he cooperated, there'd be a court date. Mom tried once to reach out again, asking if I could consider withdrawing it. Said he was sorry, said he was under stress. I told her that forgiveness and accountability weren't the same thing, that I could heal without pretending it never happened. She didn't reply. I think for the first time she understood. Meanwhile, I kept living. It was strange how quickly peace became normal. My schedule no longer revolved around crisis. I cooked real meals, slept through the night, made new friends. I stopped dodging invitations, started saying yes to things that didn't come with an emotional invoice. I bought plants. They didn't all survive, but some did. That felt like progress. One Sunday, while grocery shopping, I passed a family, 2 kids' young mom, tired eyes. I watched her pull out coupons, dig for change. Her little boy was tugging at her jacket, asking for candy. She looked at him, kissed his forehead, and said, "Next time, sweetheart." I walked past, heart heavy. Not because I judged her, but because I understood. There are too many women like her. Too many kids carrying tension in their shoulders by the time they're 5. And too many men like my dad who disappear behind excuses instead of effort. I wanted to walk up and say, "You're doing great," but I didn't. Just smiled and kept moving. Some kindnesses live in the silence. That night, I opened my laptop and started writing. Not for work, not for therapy, just to remember, to put it all somewhere outside my body. The years I gave, the weight I carried, the moment I finally said enough. And what came after? The quiet, the clarity, the chance to rebuild a life that didn't require breaking myself into pieces to keep someone else whole. 3 months later, the world felt like a different place. Not because anything outside had changed, but because I finally had. My apartment had become more than just a space to sleep. It was home. The kind of home that didn't echo with other people's demands or ring with unpaid debts disguised as phone calls. It was quiet in the best way. The kind of quiet that used to scare me because it meant I wasn't doing enough, wasn't giving enough. Now it felt earned. Like peace had finally gotten tired of waiting and decided to stay. The court date came and went. My dad didn't show. His lawyer submitted a plea agreement. Community service, financial restitution, probation. No jail time, but a permanent mark. He lost access to any account with my name on it, any card tied to my credit. That bridge wasn't just burned, it was buried. My lawyer called it a win. I didn't celebrate. It wasn't about revenge. It was about drawing a line and never stepping back over it. A quiet declaration: you don't get to ruin my life and call it love. Kayla and I stayed in occasional contact. She kept me updated, nothing heavy, just snapshots of the kids' updates about her job, small moments that felt honest. She never asked for anything, not once. And that alone spoke louder than any apology could. She was trying. That's all I ever wanted. Not perfection, not redemption, just effort. One night, she sent a picture. Lexi and Max were sitting on a rug in their living room, surrounded by construction paper crayons and half-eaten apple slices. They looked calm, safe, happy in that unpolished real-life way. I stared at it longer than I meant to. There was no guilt this time, no pressure behind my ribs, just a soft warmth in my chest. A reminder that letting go doesn't always mean shutting the door forever. Sometimes it means stepping away long enough for people to meet you halfway. My mom wrote again. A longer letter this time. No check, just words. She said she understood why I did what I did. Said she'd spent her life trying to hold everything together and didn't realize how often she handed me the tape and walked away. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't ask for contact. Just said she hoped one day we'd sit across from each other and talk like people, not roles. I read it twice, folded it carefully, placed it in the same drawer as the check. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because I wasn't ready. Maybe someday, maybe not. But I appreciated that for once she wasn't trying to fix it with a favor or a plea. Just honesty. That spring, I took a short trip out of state. A cabin tucked near a lake, no Wi-Fi, no deadlines. Just trees, water, and time. I brought books, a notebook, no expectations. On the second night, I stood on the porch and watched the sun fall behind the hills. The air was cold but clean, the kind of air that reminds you how small your problems are in the grand scale of everything. I thought about the kid I used to be, always waiting for a pat on the back that never came, always hoping that if he just did more, gave more, stayed quiet longer, someone would finally notice. I wished I could sit beside him now and say, "You were enough the whole time. You just weren't in the right place to be seen." Back in the city, life kept moving. I got promoted. Nothing flashy, but it came with better pay and more autonomy. I started mentoring a junior rep on my team. He reminded me a little of myself, smart, loyal, constantly over-delivering. One day, he stayed late on a Friday trying to fix a botched client deal. I pulled him aside, told him the truth. Work hard, but not at the cost of yourself. They'll let you bleed out quietly if you let them. Set boundaries before you forget what rest feels like. He nodded. I could see it landed. That mattered more than any commission check ever would. I still walk past the grocery store where I saw that mom with the coupons. Still wonder if she's doing okay. Maybe she got help, maybe not. But I hope wherever she is, she knows she's not invisible, that someone saw her even just for a moment and silently rooted for her. Sometimes people ask if I talk to my family now. I tell them the truth, a little, carefully, with clear lines. We don't pretend everything's fine. We don't rehash the past. We exist in a quiet truce, one built on mutual exhaustion and cautious respect. It's not perfect, but it's healthier than the fiction we lived before. The best part, I don't dread holidays anymore. I don't scan my phone for emergencies or guilt bombs wrapped in emojis. I wake up and choose how to spend my time. I make breakfast, I go for walks. I answer calls when I want to, not because I'm afraid of what'll happen if I don't. That kind of freedom isn't loud. It doesn't show up in Instagram captions, but it changes everything. One morning, I found a drawing slipped under my apartment door. No note, just a kid's crayon art. A stick figure holding hands with two smaller ones. Uncle K, it said in shaky letters at the top. No explanation, just there. I knew it was from Lexi. Maybe Kayla had passed by with the kids. Maybe they didn't knock. Maybe they just wanted to leave something behind. I taped it to the inside of my kitchen cabinet, so I could see it every morning. Not as a reminder of what I gave up, but of what I reclaimed. I learned that choosing yourself doesn't mean you stop loving others. It just means you finally include yourself in the list. That silence can be powerful. That closure isn't always a conversation, it's a choice to stop bleeding for people who wouldn't bandage you back. And that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away without setting the house on fire. Just leave the matchbox, take your piece, and keep moving. Because when you've spent your whole life being someone's plan B, the real win isn't revenge. It's finally becoming your own plan A. Story 2. My parents viewed me like a failed handyman and referred to my sibling as a genius. So I grinned and took a single action that destroyed their idyllic existence. I'm a 28-year-old HVAC technician. Yes, I make a living by fixing air conditioners, whatever, it's not glamorous. Long hours spent in chilly basements and dirty attics. Make the bill payments. The state of my family is a complete mess. The golden kid is my 25-year-old younger brother, Vincent. It has always been. Looks good, feels like a tech genius. Parents who believe he's a ray of sunshine. Me, I'm merely present. The afterthought, the backup child. I remember this from when Vincent was 6 and I was 10. This new video gaming system was something we both desired. For months, I had been doing chores, saving any cash Vincent came across, and pretending to be upset with my mother about a school child boasting about having one. The following day, his room has a brand new console. Dad just said, "Maybe save up a bit more sport," when I inquired about mine. Behind their backs, Vincent gave me this smug little look. Even at 6, the little brat understood precisely what he was doing. I once needed $50 for a field trip in high school. Dad made me mow lawns to earn it and gave me a lengthy lecture about financial responsibility. They purchased a $1 $200 MacBook for Vincent that same week after he mentioned wanting a new laptop for coding tasks. When I brought this up, no one asked any questions. Vince is utilizing it for his future, according to Mom. The purpose of your field trip is to have fun. In any case, it was a scientific museum. Bob, my coworker, gets it. Yesterday, after resolving this commercial system dilemma at a legal company, we went out to lunch. After 8 hours of diagnostics, it was discovered that there was a dead squirrel in the duct system. Attorneys were panicking because it was 82 degrees in their priceless filing room. When I receive yet another text from Mom on Vincent's most recent accomplishment, Bob shows me pictures of this unfortunate fried squirrel. Bob shoves half a tortilla in his mouth and exclaims, "Dude, that black mold we discovered at the Jensen job is not as poisonous as your family." He's not incorrect. Speaking of work, we see some very strange stuff. I was summoned to this opulent suburban home last week. The woman complained that her air conditioner was roaring. I'm considering a bearing problem. A belt, perhaps? Not at all. She has been putting letters via her return vent. Airflow was obstructed by 3 months' worth of bills, catalogs, and coupons. I billed her the usual amount. In addition, Bob refers to it as the people's or idiot's tax. Dinners with the family are essentially torture. Vincent talks endlessly about his most recent promotion, business travels, some app that is transforming the industry, and so on. Mom listens to everything he says as if he were Jesus. Dad simply sits there grinning proudly and nodding, most likely already squandering Vincent's fictitious millions. And then me. Dad interrupts me as I try to share my day. Has Killian progressed to filter changes yet? Mom's phony little giggle is heard in the laugh track. Vincent's arrogant laugh. Dad laughs with a full belly. I got the message. The joke in the family is Killian, the HVAC guy. On career day in my senior year of high school, I expressed interest in HVAC. Good money, that's always in style. Dad choked on his coffee because he laughed so hard. Well, I suppose someone has to do it. During his first year, Vincent suggested pursuing a career in programming, and his father bought him a new desktop computer and coding books right away. Began bragging to everyone that his son would be the next Bill Gates. The difference was enlightening. Vincent always adds that it must be authentically fulfilling. It's truly making a difference there, bro, spending your days clearing the blockages in other people's air conditioners. Then as his mother practically swoons over him, he casually brings up his stock options. I simply sit there, feign a smile, eat, and count down the minutes until I can get out. I take their bullshit year after year because I'm not the type to make a scene. Just the punching bag for the family. My apartment isn't particularly noteworthy. A refrigerator that makes strange noises and a single bedroom with mismatched furniture. However, it belongs to me. Don't judge. Golden Boy is not comparable. Vincent. Vincent made one visit. He surveyed the area as though he were at a zoo. Whoa, Killian, very comfortable. I suppose I'll continue writing code since this is what HVAC money gets you. He chuckled and boasted about his loft in the heart of the city for the next hour. My intention was to strike him in the throat. I won't lie. Eden, a 26-year-old woman, and I have been dating for a few months. She teaches kindergarten. She and I met while I was repairing the air conditioner at her school. In a panic, the principal called. The children are melting, as if life or death were at stake. Ended up being nothing more than a trip breaker. This adorable teacher keeps stopping by to check on the system while I'm checking it. She tells me laughing that the children are sketching what hell looks like. The interior is growing gloomy. We have been dating ever since I got her number. When I tell her about my jobs, she finds it funny. The elderly woman who wore a parka indoors and kept her thermostat set to 64 is her favorite. She was unable to determine why she was so cold. Even had a meeting with my family. A huge error. Like she was 5 years old, Vincent spent the entire night explaining technical things to her. Dude, the internet is a collection of shut up. She is not a child, but she teaches them. She later said, "Wow, your brother really enjoys the sound of his own voice." At that moment, she knew she was a keeper. However, I've noticed strange things about Vincent's business lately. Nothing significant. Simple things. His tales don't quite fit together. He occasionally talks about how large his team is before slipping in the statement that they are understaffed. Or he'll boast about their opulent workspace. Dodge, however, when Mom requests a visit. I began to see articles on the internet. 2 tech blogs are raising doubts about their growth figures. Untrustworthy reviews are being left by former workers. Bob believes I'm thinking too much about it. He claims that all tech guys are jerks. Perhaps it's part of the job description, but something doesn't feel right. Vincent gave everyone water bottles, t-shirts, and other company merchandise featuring his startup's logo for Christmas last year. The following day, Dad went to the gym wearing his shirt, already telling his friends about his son's soon-to-be successful business. Mom covered her car with their sticker. Me, I work with the water bottle. Everywhere it leaked. In some way, the first day seemed appropriate. I fixed the air conditioner at this downtown finance office yesterday. I heard these guys discussing houses of cards that are about to collapse and overvalued tech startups. Just one mention. In particular, Vincent's business stated that their figures don't pass the smell test. I pretended not to hear it and continued working, but it stayed with me. Perhaps karma is at last calling. Vincent and other guys always land on their feet. It was a cruel summer last year. Note the heat wave. Every AC in the city is putting in extra hours. So I was crawling through attics for 2 60-hour weeks, running on Red Bull and spite it's hot enough to cook on. By Friday, I had one customer, a complete Karen, who insisted that even though the display read 68, her air conditioner wasn't cooling down. I verified that the system was flawless. Finally, I saw that she had a space heater running in the corner and blackout curtains. In a heat wave, a space heater. She said, "Well, I get cold feet, but I like the room," after I pointed it out. Cool. Before I said something I would later regret, I charged her the full diagnostic fee and walked away. The downtown office of this lawyer was the worst. There was nothing obviously wrong, but the compressor kept shutting down. Hours were spent troubleshooting. I've finally identified the problem. The office manager asked if I could just make it work anyhow after I gave my explanation. Yes, for you, I'll simply break the laws of thermodynamics. No issue. Mom kept blowing up my phone all week even though I didn't want to eat dinner with the family. Vincent has some exciting news. That was the exact phrase in every text. Everything is capitalized. After my last job, I dragged my weary ass over. Hardly had time to take a bath. When I walked in, I saw Vincent sprawled out on the couch with a designer jacket thrown next to him as if it didn't matter. It most likely cost more than my rent each month. His eyes hardly leave his phone. Have you been promoted to thermostat installer yet, Killian? From the kitchen, Mom laughs nervously. Dad laughs out loud as if it were a comedy gem. This began on my 16th birthday, when we were still children. Tickets to see this band were all I wanted. Rather, I received a Walmart gift card and socks. Dad gave Vincent the goddamn car on his 16th birthday. He is displaying genuine promise. Dad explained like I was too stupid to understand why they treated us differently. I grabbed a drink and headed to the kitchen. Mom's making Vincent's favorites, not a buffalo wing in sight, even though she knows I love them. Classic. Killian. "Honey, you look tired," she says, not actually looking at me. "Vincent's got big news today. Try to be happy for him, okay?" "Sure. Vincent has news." Shocker. Dinner starts. Vincent's going on about his latest promotion, waving his fancy smartwatch around. "CEO loved my proposal. Youngest team lead ever. Might get a corner office next month." Mom's practically orgasmic with pride. "That's wonderful." "Sweetie, isn't that wonderful, honey?" Dad nods proudly. "That's my boy. Always knew you'd make it big. So I try my luck. Actually got promoted to senior technician last week." Awkward pause. Dad barely looks up while Killian fixing slightly bigger air conditioners. What a milestone. Then they all laugh. Even Vincent, with this fake sympathy look that makes me want to flip the table. "Hey, not everyone can code right," Vincent adds. "Someone's got to do the grunt work, though. Honestly, bro, you smell like you've been rolling around inside those dusty units all day. Ever heard of deodorant?" I had a flashback to last week, stuck in an attic in 120-degree heat, fixing an evaporator coil while the homeowner kept yelling up, "Is it fixed yet?" My electric bill better not go up. Meanwhile, Vincent sits in air-conditioned comfort all day, probably browsing Reddit instead of working. But he's the success story. Mom tuts. "Vincent, be nice. Killian works with his hands." She says it like I clean toilets with them. "Yeah, Killian's job is important," Dad says with a smirk. "Without him, who would we call when the AC breaks, though, at the rates you guys charge? Maybe you should be driving something better than that rusted truck." My truck's a 2010 F-150. Not new, but reliable. Paid off 3 years ago. Meanwhile, I know for a fact Vincent's luxury apartment costs more than he makes. I saw him checking his banking app once. Negative balance, but sure, my truck's the problem. Something in me just snapped. Not rage. More like a quiet click. Like when a rusted bolt finally gives way while you're trying to loosen it. I set down my fork, got to my feet, and gave Vincent a direct look. While your fantasy lasts, enjoy it. Truth always finds its way. Just so you know, Dad, the cost of that rusted truck has been covered. That can't be said of all your fancy shit, can it? Dead silence. Vincent, smug expression, slipped for a brief moment. Then I left without saying anything more. This was my first time confronting them. The awkward dinner was worth every moment because of the expressions on their faces. I climbed into my rusty truck and sat for a while. My phone started exploding right away. I chose to ignore it and give Eden a call. "Hello, how was it?" she inquired. I told her that I had just left for family dinner. "It feels so good." It was about time she burst out laughing. "Do you want to come over and tell me everything I spent the ensuing weeks immersed in my work? Toughest jobs, extra shifts, whatever." Mom left voicemails about how I ruined dinner and my attitude issue. I didn't listen and erased them. Dad sent one text. "Your mom is not happy. Give her a call." Yes? No? Bobby enjoys working overtime. He's banking every hour he can because his girlfriend is expecting a child. We accepted this enormous strip mall project. 10 rooftop units that have been unmaintained for years, all day long in 95-degree heat, climbing and descending ladders. We discovered everything from dead birds to a basketball-sized wasp nest that was completely intact. Bob snapped a photo of me holding it with barbecue tongs, sent it to Eden with the caption, "Killian's new family is less toxic than his real one." She set it as the background on her phone. We had a run of strange customer problems. One man claimed that because his air conditioner turned on at random times, it was possessed. I demonstrated to him how to activate the schedule feature on his smart thermostat. However, I then began to notice strange things about Vincent's company in the local business news. Financial problems, employee grievances, and growth figures that don't add up. At first, nothing significant, only minor warning signs. I was referred to this industry forum thread about overvalued startups to avoid by a high school friend of mine who works in technology. Vincent's business came in at number 3. High turnover, missed deadlines, and creative accounting were all mentioned in the post. I considered sending it to my parents, but I changed my mind. Not my circus. My monkeys, no. I recalled the time Vincent was 14 years old and used his father's credit card to buy some online games. He earned $800. Because I was older, I was held responsible first, when they eventually recognized it as Vincent. He sobbed as he explained that he had no idea how online payments operated. When I was 14, they grounded him for a weekend and he returned home during our curfew. For a month, I was deprived of my driving rights. The rules were always different. I'm getting pretty serious with Eden. Most nights, she stays over. My place is quieter than hers, and she has roommates. She inquired about Vincent while we were preparing dinner one evening. I shared with her what I've been seeing on the internet. She said it sounded like a house of cards, chopping up veggies. That kind of person always crashes. Finally, Eden receives the trades because her father is a plumber. Life honors it. The attitude of my family has drastically changed. And then boom. In between jobs on Tuesday morning, I check my phone. And it's there. Vincent's business vanished in an instant. A fraud investigation is underway against the CEO and other executives. False investment figures, false earnings reports, fake everything. Additionally, a grainy photo shows Vincent being escorted out while hiding from reporters with his jacket over his face. I won't lie, I felt vindicated in part. All those years of Killian being the letdown and Vincent being the genius. Golden Boy was nothing more than spray paint, as it turns out. I had a phone blow up later that day. Mom, Dad, Vincent. I paid them all no attention. I completed my day. They kept blowing up my notifications while I was working. I was strangely at ease. That evening, I checked my voicemails. Complete panic. Mom was in tears. Dad insisted that I give him a call back. Vincent's voice was broken. The speed at which they recalled my number was strange. When they needed something. The following morning, I gave Dad a ring. The conversation proceeded exactly as you might have expected. The bomb was dropped by him. They committed to Vincent's startup for the rest of their lives. To invest in it, they refinanced their paid-off home. In the belief that they would be comfortable on Vincent's fictitious millions, Dad retired early. They are currently dealing with debt collectors and foreclosure, mainly because they placed all of their money on Golden Boy. I laughed when he asked for money. I was unable to resist. I reminded him of what HVAC professionals do. For years, he has been making fun of them. Their house cannot be saved with it alone. I recalled needing $2,000 for supplies and an application to a technical school when I was 17. They couldn't help, Dad said. The finances were tight. Later, I learned that Vincent had just received $5,000 for a coding boot camp. After 2 weeks, he resigned. However, funds were limited. After I spoke with Dad, Bob took me out to lunch. I told him everything. All he did was shake his head. I believed my family to be dysfunctional man. He requested an additional nacho plate. In these circumstances, stress eating is required. Meanwhile, new information about Vincent's business continued to surface. It turns out that they only ever had slick presentations and projections, never a tangible product. Traditional vapeware from Silicon Valley. Vincent wasn't a team leader. He was a low-level developer. It was all a lie. I was handling an emergency call at a church that weekend. Just before Sunday service, their air conditioner died. The Lord works in mysterious ways, the pastor said repeatedly. Yes, friend. So do unmaintained condensers that are 30 years old. I read through my family's increasingly frantic messages while I waited for a part. Mom made an attempt at guilt. Following everything we've done for you. Dad made some demands. This is the purpose of family. Vincent merely pleaded. Traditional roles. As usual. For the first time in my life, I felt totally free after blocking all of their numbers. But Eden understands. The golden child was also her brother. According to her, some families are poisonous. Distance is sometimes the only healthy choice. After a month, things returned to their usual routine. Work from home, Eden. Do it again. Without my family's continual criticism, it's calm. Eden is doing well. At this point, she has essentially moved in. Her tales from the kindergarten classroom somehow normalize my strange experiences with HVAC. Her child vomited all over the reading corner after eating a crayon last week. My day of repairing a restaurant's walk-in freezer seemed incredibly dull as a result. I'm always busy at work. An elderly woman who calls me once a month is one of my regular clients. She is certain that her system is malfunctioning. It isn't. I believe she simply enjoys the company. She always has cookies on hand. Inquires about Eden. Final visit? Before I mentioned that I had a girlfriend, she attempted to pair me up with her granddaughter. Her expression of disappointment was priceless. My job at the gym was a nightmare. Citing his cousin's track-knowing friend, the owner continued to assist. Yes, where is the friend of your cousin now? In the process of Bob making faces behind his back, I almost dropped a 40-pound motor on him. I laughed so hard I nearly fell off the ladder. In relation to Bob, his girlfriend gave birth to a young girl. Despite having enormous bags under his eyes when he arrives at work, he is beaming. He posts new pictures every day as if we're all eager to see his child. Daily slight variations in facial expression. It's kind of sweet, but annoying. The man is content. According to Eden, we ought to get a dog. She has puppy fever after a therapy dog visited her school. She's looking online for pet-friendly apartments, but I keep telling her that my apartment doesn't allow pets. Even though it's moving quickly, nothing feels off. Then one Sunday morning, Vincent arrived. No text, no warning, right there. I nearly failed to identify him. The high-end apparel was no longer available. The same as the smug smile and flawless hair. This Vincent had the appearance of a plain t-shirt and wrinkled khakis. He had stubble and dark circles under his eyes. If you didn't look closely, he might have been a homeless man. Against my better judgment, I let him in. Although it's not fancy, my place is paid for and clean. He probably paced around anxiously before crashing on my couch, unlike wherever he's staying. He began this entire confession. He never achieved the success he claimed. Years ago, he began to exaggerate in order to win over his parents. The lie became more and more egregious. Desperate to make his lies credible, he became embroiled in the startup scam. On promises he knew were false, he persuaded Mom and Dad to invest their retirement. I was struck by the irony like a truck. He was only living in his imagination, and I felt useless next to him all these years. It made me think of what we were told by our first HVAC instructor. It's impossible to fake it in this job. A system is either effective or ineffective. No amount of nonsense alters this. Physics. I wish someone had mentioned business to Vincent. Vincent then revealed the true purpose of his visit. He believes a crypto scheme will make everything better. With what little they have left, Mom and Dad are already on board with investing. I said, "Jesus Christ, are you really attempting to make things better with another scam? It's not real." They're still pursuing Vincent off another cliff after everything. Like when Vincent persuaded his father to fund his friend's groundbreaking auto detailing company in high school. Dad lost $5,000. However, Vincent was exhibiting entrepreneurial spirit, so it wasn't entirely his fault. I pointed out to Vincent how foolish this sounded. He sagged his left shoulder. The Vincent I grew up with was so different from this defeated Vincent. That evening, I called my parents in an attempt to reason with their mother, and confirmed that they were placing their remaining funds on Vincent's new opportunity. They are, of course. They will never be able to learn. After the call, Eden observed me pacing the apartment and made the observation that I cannot save those who do not wish to be saved. My parents are adults who make their own decisions, she said. Poor ones, but their decisions nonetheless. I still find it bothersome, even though she's right. It's because the pattern is so incredibly familiar, not because I'm concerned about their financial situation. Vincent makes a mistake. They allow him to keep repeating. After 2 weeks, Bob received a text from his cousin who works at a bank informing him that my parents were attempting to obtain a high-interest loan secured by their vehicle. News spreads quickly in small towns. They all support Vincent's plan. A last-ditch attempt, apparently. I sent them links to articles about scams involving cryptocurrency. Dad said, "Noted," in response. Interpretation. Go away. We're not paying attention. Another week went by. My phone's notifications exploded while I was working on the pool house air conditioner beneath a wealthy man's deck. Vincent's cryptocurrency investment went bankrupt. Surprise, surprise. It's shocking. I had lunch with Eden, asked if I planned to give my parents a call. I simply gave a headshake. What can be said? I told you so. I discovered my parents had lost everything when I was looking through their frantic texts that evening. Savings loans and so forth. Next week, they will be forced to leave. They've decided that I'm solely to blame for Dad's alleged deteriorating health due to stress. Since I failed to stop them, since I didn't save them, because I didn't work well with others. If they weren't so annoying, the mental acrobatics would be amazing. Vincent vanished entirely, leaving a dramatic note promising to return once he had fixed everything. Classic Vincent fleeing while feigning heroism. 3 weeks following the crypto catastrophe, my parents unexpectedly arrived. As I was getting ready for work, I caught a glimpse of their car outside my window. As usual, the timing was perfect. They practically ambushed me in the parking lot as they followed me to my truck. "Look, Dad." A terrible face caused wrinkles in the clothes. "Mom is acting like a martyr. Look at how miserable I am." Expression intended to increase guilt. Dad got right to the point about my duty to my family. When I declined to offer money, Mom nodded. From guilt-tripping to outright accusation, Dad's tone changed. All of a sudden, I'm the antagonist in their tale, the callous son who deserted his family when they were in need. They became louder and more desperate as they followed me all the way to the door of my apartment. In order to keep my neighbors from being upset, I let them in. A huge error. It worsened inside. Dad yelling that if I had just helped, I could have stopped all of this. When they initially inquired as to whether I wasn't envious of Vincent, if I truly was a son. Mom is in tears, those deceptive tears that fall short of her eyes. This could have been avoided by you. Dad pointed a finger at me and yelled, "You couldn't put aside your small-minded jealousy, and now we're going to be homeless." Feeling jealous? I chuckled. It's very wealthy. I've been treated like second-class family for 28 years. And I meant to save you. Now, Mom cried. We gave you everything. A roof over your head, food. You put everything into Vincent. The leftovers were given to me. Dad's cheeks flushed. That is untrue. We helped you with your small career. My meager profession. While they are pleading for handouts, I am debt-free. Then she revealed the shocking news of Dad's cardiac condition. I had never heard of it before. Ideally timed to maximize guilt. I inquired about his diagnosis date. They glanced at each other. That's always a sign that they're lying. Dad, when was the diagnosis of this heart condition made? The physician said. He stumbled. Which physician? When I had had enough at that point. I expressed my exact opinions about their financial choices, parenting style, and devotion to the golden child. I informed them that when they repeatedly placed all of their money on Vincent and his lies, they had made their decision. They are by themselves. I nearly hesitated when I saw their shocked expressions. Nearly. As they gathered their belongings and departed, I refused to back down. The parting remark that I was not her son didn't hurt as much as Mom had anticipated. All it did was validate what I've always known. The following day, I installed a security camera, changed my phone number, and alerted my building manager to their presence. It was the first time I didn't feel bad about breaking up with someone. Bob believes that I treat my parents too harshly. His family is close. Cutting them off is unthinkable to him. When your family genuinely cares about you, it's a simple viewpoint. Have coffee with them. As we were filling up the van, he made a suggestion. Neutral territory, a public setting. They are unable to create a scene. He has obviously never witnessed my mother's outbursts. The woman might be an Oscar winner. My dad sent me a certified letter a week later. I skimmed it. Vague health concerns, more guilt-tripping. And lastly, the important part. For the first and last month's rent at their new location, they require $5,000. I sent it back to the sender unopened, where I was occupied. Fortunately, Eden has been hinting at an official move-in date. She's here most nights anyway, so it makes sense. We began to consider larger apartments, possibly even homes. I never imagined that I would be able to purchase real estate, but HVAC pays more than my family ever realized. My aunt gave me a strange call. Mom's sister. She is tired of having my parents live with her. Her guest room has apparently been transformed into Operation Guilt Command Central. Killian. They have a spreadsheet with all of their strategies and manipulations. According to my aunt, it's absurd. Thus, the call. She has always appealed to me. Bob is up all night with his baby. On most days, he arrives at work looking like a zombie. Maintains that it's worthwhile. Man, you ought to give it a try. Everything changes when you become a father. Now it's a hard pass. Regards. My parents escalated a month after the altercation. They began phoning my employer, accusing me of embezzlement. They made 7 calls to my boss. He knows me too well, though, to be convinced. I was just alerted by it. They left messages about my instability after trying Eden School. The principal was supportive but perplexed. They are becoming more and more desperate. I don't miss the irony. They treated me like the untrustworthy one all those years, and now it's they who are acting irrationally. A restraining order was recommended by Eden. Although it seems drastic, their actions are becoming erratic. I have the documents on hand in case something comes up. Vincent has not responded in the interim. He disappeared entirely. I received a call from an unidentified number 6 weeks following the crypto collapse. Of all places, it was Vincent who called from Arizona. Believe it or not, he says he works in construction. LOL, the golden child pouring concrete and laying bricks. There are moments when karma is a lovely thing. He claimed that the construction work is humble him and that he is coming to appreciate the importance of hard work. Despite my desire to laugh at the irony, I was simply fed up with the whole thing. I recalled Vincent making fun of my choice of profession for years. People who are incapable of thinking for a living should work by hand. At Thanksgiving dinner, he once said, he is now carrying bricks in the sweltering heat of Arizona. It's funny how life unfolds. His construction story is bullshit, in Eden's opinion. She claimed that people like him don't really change all that much. She may be correct, but it's too satisfying to doubt the mental picture of Vincent with blisters and a hard hat. In the absence of my family life, found a rhythm. Work-home Eden drama and the occasional beer with Bob. It's quiet. I began to consider the future in a manner that had never occurred to me before. Goals for relationships, career advancement, and possibly starting my own company. One day. Then one Tuesday night, just when everything was quiet, my doorbell rang. In person, it was Vincent, looking worse than ever if that's possible. Vincent looked like the devil as he stood in my doorway. Thinner, older, that arrogant swagger was gone. After glancing at me, Eden went to the kitchen to give me some space. I opened the door for Vincent. He shuffled uncomfortably, looking around our apartment. It's paid for and comfortable, but nothing special. He appeared to be a specter of himself. Faded to faded jeans, graying hair that is thinning. It was difficult to accept that this was the same person who had once ridiculed my clothes from the Target clearance sale. He began his story about construction in Arizona. He claimed to have been working for minimum wage installing drywall and moving concrete. According to him, his foreman is a jerk who forces him to redo everything 3 times. He gave detailed descriptions of sunburns, blisters, and fatigue. He thrust his palms in my face and said, "You should see my hands. My calluses are on my calluses." Whoa. Doing what millions of people do every day, do you want a medal? You found out there is manual labor, so should I celebrate? You never imagined seeing me working in construction, he said, laughing self-deprecatingly. I said, actually, I never gave you any thought. Just enough of his face dropped to satisfy. The irony was too good to resist. The same person who once claimed that HVAC was only for those who couldn't handle it in the real world was now realizing how difficult physical labor is. I almost burst out laughing when he displayed his rough hands to me like they were scars from battle. Greetings from my world friend. Vincent told everyone that my fictitious career goal was because I wasn't intelligent enough for college during my sophomore year of high school. Mr. Stanford dropout was now learning that physical labor isn't as simple as he had assumed. Eventually, he reached the main point. Our parents' situation has gotten worse. They were expelled by my aunt. In fact, Dad's health is getting worse. Heart issues brought on by stress. Dad's disability checks barely cover their rent, and they're staying in a dubious motel. I experienced that well-known pang of guilt before recalling all the years I had spent being viewed as the family's failure. I recall my father giggling when I described the HVAC certification process. As a result, you receive a gold star for properly changing the filters. When it came to coding, he would never have dared to say that to Vincent. Vincent stated that although he sends them what little he earns, it is insufficient. He claimed that because they are desperate, they asked him to speak with me. That should come as no surprise. When they wanted something, Vincent was always their ambassador. They are unaware of my presence. Staring at the floor, he confessed, "I simply had to check to see if you were doing all right." Correct, because your concern for my welfare has always been so great. Definitely not to request money or because you need something. Flatly, I added. He flinched. When Vincent made an unexpected admission, the topic of conversation changed. He claimed that he was constantly envious of me and that while he was pretending to be someone else, I had genuine skills, a clear path, and confidence in my abilities, fearful of being revealed as a phony. After bringing drinks and observing the situation for a short while, Eden discreetly left to take a shower. Vincent remarked on how pleasant she seemed as he watched her go. At least he was correct about that. He made his case for helping our parents find a place to stay without requesting my forgiveness of them or of him. "They've changed that," he said. "They have been humbled by losing everything. Now," he said, "they talk about you differently. Dad in particular. He spoke of your work as though it were a source of pride. It's amazing how my career suddenly gains respectability after filing for bankruptcy. A financial crisis can drastically alter one's perspective." I said, "That's convenient timing. Years of derision. Then when they need money, I'm suddenly respected." Vincent let out a sigh. "We all deserve that, including me. They are still our parents, though. They are not entitled to anything because of their biology. I promised to give it some thought. For now, it was all I had to offer." He appeared relieved to not receive a flat rejection as he accepted this. Before he left, he gave me his new number and the details of their motel. I gave it a lot of thought during the week. Work, meanwhile, kept me rooted. Bobby has his own problems. No one is sleeping, and the baby is colicky. His shirt was turned inside out when he arrived. Not until lunchtime did I notice. Still, he said it's worth it. The most challenging job I've ever had. With a great yawn, he asserted, "Eden has been looking into crisis support services for seniors." She didn't press me in either direction. She said, "Just gave information on whatever you decide. Don't follow their terms, follow yours." Astute woman. A week later, I decided what to do. Neither Vincent nor my parents were called. Rather, I reached out to a local social worker, explained the circumstances, and set up help with housing applications. Dad's medical resources, and Mom's job placement services. I rented a modest apartment close to the hospital for 3 months. I didn't invite them back into my life or give them my address. It's okay for some bridges to remain burned. In an unexpectedly modest response, Vincent texted his gratitude. I just said, "This time, I did it my way. They must be able to support themselves." Life went on. I got engaged to Eden. Not very fancy, just a simple ring I saved for and dinner at her favorite restaurant. She instantly said yes and shed joyful tears. Her family is overjoyed. They genuinely like me. It's an odd idea. When my boss retired, a significant shift occurred. He offered to sell me his equipment and client list for a fair price. The idea was both exciting and terrifying. After doing the math, Eden concluded that it was financially feasible. I started cold front solutions after taking the risk. Owning a business was a nightmare for the first few months, but things gradually got better. I hired 3 reliable technicians who are knowledgeable and consistently arrive on time, and I was able to secure a significant contract with an office complex. Bob brought his experience and connections with clients to my job. The company began to level off. During this time, I had the most hilarious HVAC call of my professional life. This upscale country club sent me an urgent request. During a significant event, their systems went down. When I got there, Vincent was in a catering staff uniform and was drenched from the heat in the kitchen. He failed to notice me. For a brief moment, I observed him carrying trays and receiving orders from the chef of Golden Boy, a tech startup that will be serving in 6 months. Without saying hello, I left after fixing the air conditioner. There are some things that are better left unsaid. My parents are doing well, based on what I've heard. After they had a permanent home, Dad's health improved. Mom was hired by a library. They use Eden's email to send birthday cards. She has now become my unofficial family buffer. We purchased a home close to Eden's school. 3 rooms, nice neighborhood, decent yard. I'm currently installing a high-end HVAC system. Benefits of the position. I can't help but reflect on my progress. Vincent is still working as a construction worker in Arizona. It appears that he has come to terms with it, occasionally provides updates, always mindful of my personal boundaries. A picture of him and his team finishing a wall was included in his final message. In fact, the man appeared to take pride in his physical work. I never imagined the day would come. Perhaps we will have a genuine relationship once more in the future. Perhaps not. I have complete control over that choice for the first time in my life. And that is the true triumph in this case. Eventually, I stood alone instead of watching them fall. Enjoying the reversal of fortunes may be considered petty by some. Perhaps it is. However, it feels pretty damn good to be the only one with my shit together after being the family joke for so long. While the tech whiz who couldn't stop talking about his stock options sweats his ass off hauling concrete for some foreman who treats him like dirt, the HVAC guy they made fun of now has a thriving business. That's the strange way of life. Dramatic confrontations aren't always the best form of retaliation. It's simply living a good life and letting reality take care of the rest.